Hi, I'm Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Today I'm going to show you two different yarns that are very similar. I have Lion Brand Vel-Luxe and Bernat Velvet. These yarns by eye are very similar, but they do have some differences that I wanted to talk about in case you were considering ordering one or the other online. Bernat Velvet is 100% polyester. It's a number 5 bulky weight yarn. It comes in 300 gram balls, and each ball is 315 yards. It comes in 12 total colors. Most of those colors are sort of home or adult colors, sort of these dark burgundies and grays, some yellows and blues. Lion Brand Vel-Luxe is a number 4 weight yarn. It comes in 150 gram balls, and for that you get 246 yards. It comes in just 6 colors, and again, they're more adult or home accent type colors. It comes in this pretty gold and this color called Dusty Pink, and 4 other colors. Bernat Velvet is really soft and squishy and silky, where Vel-Luxe is very soft but not as squishy because it has a much shorter pile to the yarn. This is a chenille style yarn where it's got short fibers twisted between like 2 threads, and it just isn't as long, so it just isn't as squishy. I just made up this little square just so I could feel how it worked up. Unfortunately, I worked up just this much and I hit a knot, and so I did go ahead and cut that and stopped there. In the case of the Bernat Velvet, I hit 2 knots in just this size cowl, which I was not thrilled about, but it happens. I don't know if this yarn has a tendency to break, and that's why I hit so many knots with both styles. I haven't noticed that with Bernat Blanket. I haven't hit a lot of knots, more than you'd expect in a single ball. But it was not a particularly good sign to me for either yarn to hit knots so fast and so frequently in the balls. I will have to see what you guys think, and if any of you have used Bernat Velvet, to see if you have encountered a lot of knots. I've only worked up this cowl and this little swatch, and so I don't have enough experience to say whether that's a common problem or not, but it is something to just keep in mind. In both cases, the knots were just tied and they just continued on with the yarn. I did share a review of the Premier Parfait Layers, which is a very similar yarn to both of these, where when they changed colors, instead of just knotting the yarn and moving on, they had sewn across the color change, and it was a really nice join. So just having a knot tied in the yarn is a little bit disappointing, but because this is a solid yarn, you can just cut it and attach your yarn like you're changing balls and move on. Both of these yarns are very silky and feel very different than Bernat Blanket, which is the typical chenille style yarn that you see everywhere. Even though they're still 100% polyester, just like blanket yarn is, they don't have that quality where they grab at the skin like a microfiber cloth. So these are very silky, and you just want to keep petting them over and over again in both cases here. Because Vel-Luxe is a worsted weight yarn and not a bulky yarn, you might be able to get a little bit more stitch detail out of the yarn. It might be a little bit better for making garments instead of just accessories, just because it won't be so bulky against the body. So if you're going to make a sweater, it might be worth considering Vel-Luxe over velvet. But if you're going to make a blanket, you might want to go with velvet because it'll work up a little bit faster because it is that bigger yarn. One of the things that I don't particularly like about this style of yarn is that it catches the light a little bit strangely and looks a little bit crushed. Like you can see where the fibers are not all laying the same direction, and that's what gives it that velvet look. But I think personally, I just don't care for that. I sort of prefer it to look more even. And I had a really hard time deciding on a pattern for a cowl that really showed it off and looked nice. I don't think this yarn lent itself well to a very open pattern. I originally started with like a V-stitch, and I thought it looked kind of stringy like that. But when it's worked up a little bit more solid, like I chose to do here with the double crochets, I felt that it looked a little bit better. So that might just be something to keep in mind if you're choosing a pattern. I didn't care for it worked in a V-stitch, but I did like it a lot more when it was solid. And when I worked this little swatch up of the Vel-Luxe, I chose just a solid double crochet stitch, and it looks pretty nice worked up. If you have any questions about Bernat Velvet or Lion Brand Vel-Luxe, leave those in the comment section below. If you've worked a project up in either of these yarns and you'd like to share it with me, you can share those on either Instagram or on Facebook at Experiments in Crafting. If you like this video and you'd like to see more tutorials or yarn reviews, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.